Salam alaikum. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a great honor for me to be able to present on behalf of COWS something along the theme of the leap, which is on technology and innovation. So my talk, the emphasis is on the word competition. You know, obviously, it's a global, science and technology is not local. So I want to focus on what is happening around the world. So earlier, 1 year ago, I wrote an article in Saudi Gazette, which is one of the major English language newspaper in the kingdom, about what's the prediction, looking ahead for the year, which is 2022 in science and technology. Okay, so in that article, I start out by saying, who am I to be in a position to be able to say something about this? So on the right is not about me. It's about me being a global citizen in the science and technology field. So I'm a president of COWS, which is in the kingdom. And before that, I was a president of a UST in Hong Kong. And then I'm served on a lot of boards and advisory committee around the world. You can see that in Saudi Arabia, definitely. In Japan, there's Riken, Skolkovo, and Shanghai Jiaotong, the ranking agency. I'm on the advisory committee. I was in the U.S. National Science Foundation, and I was at UCL as a faculty and a dean. So that's sort of my US, East Asia, Hong Kong, Korea, Japan, and also finally the Middle East and Saudi Arabia. So that gives me a sense of what's happening globally in science and technology. So in my article last year, I sort of mentioned about what's the expectation for science and technology from society globally. So here are some of the challenges. These are quite obvious. We look at it, the digital transformation is really transforming our lives, our economy, jobs, and so on and so forth. The energy transition, which is very important for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, but also for the whole world. Climate change, livability, and a vibrant society. These are key issues. What about the supply of water and food, security? And there's the sustainability development goals, the 17 of them in UN. I would say mostly we're failing. Globally, as a society, we're failing on most of those. And of course, health, which includes aging and not just diseases. So we look at these are exactly, it turns out, the kingdom has recently announced, His Royal Highness the Crown Prince has announced several areas of research, development, innovation priority. There are 4 areas. It's more or less mapped into these areas. And it also turns out to be the COWS research pillars. So it tells you a little bit about what COWS emphasis is in these areas. Now, I'm talking about global innovation and research landscape. So here is a chart that we obtained from standard sources, okay, so global sources. So this is in R&D World Magazine, okay. So the one on the left is 2011, and the one on the right is 2021, so 10 years later. So the vertical axis is the number of scientists and engineers per million people of a country. And the horizontal axis is the percentage of GDP that the country spends on R&D. That's very standard. So if you look at the one, and the size of the bubble for each country is the amount of money that you spend on science. So you look at those 2 charts. The big thing that you notice, the relative position of the thing on the right is not changed very much. But the big thing here is the bubble that corresponds to China has increased dramatically over these last 10 years. Whereas other countries, some of them has faded away from the lead, and then some of them have changed. But relatively, the big elephant in the room, so to speak, is the advance of China in science and technology. This is not news to most of you, I'm sure. So here's a chart from another data source, okay, that shows the amount of R&D spending in science and technology innovation in China and in US. So the blue curve is in the US. You see over the year from 1996, so roughly the last 30 years or so. And you see the red curve is China is rising very rapidly. There's a little hiccup for the last 2 years because of COVID. I don't know the exact situation. But you see, if you continue this, the 2 curves will cross pretty soon. This is an absolute amount in US dollar, measured in US dollars. So that's the trend. So here's some specific statistics over 20 years, year 2000 on the left and 2021. So for example, if you look at 20 years ago, the amount of scientific paper publication, it's from the comparison between the US and China, there's no comparison. You know, it's one order of magnitude different in citation, in publication, in patent. But you look at 20 years later, it's very comparable. It's almost neck to neck. So this is something that happened only in the last 2 decades. So another statistic, because I'm in a university area, you see there's a ranking of university, I'm sure you know. And from 2004, the number of university in the Shanghai ranking actually to today, to 2021, the number of universities in the top 1,000 in China went from 8 only to almost 160. Whereas the US has about 200 universities. So it's almost in the same ballpark. Those are numbers that we in our field in higher education pay attention to. Here's another thing in terms of innovation, the amount of patents that are granted, resident, that is within the country. And you look at this, Saudi Arabia I put on top. I think the official will agree that Saudi Arabia has a lot of room to improve. But you see the number of patents filed domestically is quite different if you look at the change. China is almost 3 times more than in the US in the domestic, okay, and bigger than the rest of the world other than US. Now, there was a recent report published by Graham Allison from Harvard Balfour Center, where they talk about the development of Chinese technology. And these are the areas identified in that report. So these are areas that China now is or poised to be the global leader. So these are areas that are just outside the room. A lot of these things are mentioned: AI, quantum information science, 5G, and so on and so forth. So it's in many of these important areas, China is emerging. It's a very impressive progress. Let's take one of those areas, just one of those areas, which is the energy transition, very important for the kingdom. So if you look at the chart on the left, you don't have to read the fine print. In other words, the yellow part is traditional energy, if you will. The green part is sort of green energy. So you see over the last 15 years or so, the amount in the green energy is approaching the traditional energy. So the world is going through the energy transition, literally. But if you look at the chart on the right, it shows where each country is progressing in those 2 areas. And you look at that, in China, it's actually way ahead in terms of the lead that it has, in terms of the investment that it has. And you can see that in there. The color code is on different kind of carbon capture, nuclear, hydrogen, and so on. So in a way, this is not news. As many of you know, there's a technology war going on. I mean, this is the global competition. And I wrote an article, an op-ed, published in May last year with Kishore Mahbubani. Some of you may know him. The title is called The Lose-Lose Tech War. The idea is that this tech war is lose-lose, okay? So you're welcome to look at it. It's in something called the Project Syndicate. It's only online. The thing on the top right. So here are a few bullet points from there. So the US and China will lead the world in science and technology and innovation in the next decade. Nobody questioned about that. So this is an elephant in the room. This is a bitter rivalry between the 2 countries, the superpowers, will leave both countries and also the world worse off, okay? In the short term, for sure. In the long term, we don't know. It may. An effort to derail each other's progress is lose-lose. By the way, I was told by some people that Bill Gates, only in the last week or so, make the same assertion. He used the same word, lose-lose, in an interview that he did in Australia. And so therefore, it means that other countries, other than US and China, such many of us gathering here, such as cows in this kingdom, must navigate this conflict carefully, okay? And in Saudi Arabia, in the MENA region, it's in a geopolitical crossroad, as you see. And so, for example, witness both President Biden and President Xi Jinping was visiting Saudi Arabia only in the last few months. So this is where it shows where the crossroad is. In the US, you have the CHIPS Act, and this is the idea is to stop China. Is it? The question, will it stop China? I don't think it will. We don't know. And another possibility is to slow, which probably will be the case. Okay? Or the third, which is also a distinct possibility, is actually to motivate China to develop its own tech and to be self-sufficient. The history is an example, so I'm old enough to remember. So for example, China has its own GPS system. Okay, it was developed maybe 20 to 25 years ago. It's called Beidou. It means North Star. Supercomputer, which is my field. 10 years ago, China has almost no supercomputers in the top 50. Today, at least 2 in the top 10. Today, okay? Space. China has a space program. You know, it's a plan to go to Mars, for example. And all of these are undertaken in a very adversarial condition. So I think if we do this, it's anybody's guess. I don't have the crystal ball. Any one of those options can happen. But I think the possibility of lose-lose is very real. So now for institutions of higher education such as KAUST, we are a key driver in building innovation, sustainability, and so on. And we generate a research idea. We also educate the people. We are at the forefront of discovery. So this is a very important role for university. I give just two examples. My time is out. 2 examples where KAUST technology is attracting investment from both the East and the West. You're talking about. So one is a company, a spin-off called Red Sea Farm. It's now called Red Sea. So they use the seawater to irrigate and grow crops. And they're now exporting this technology to the US. They just opened a branch in Arizona in the US. The one on the right is one of our faculty members discovered a way of mining lithium from salt water, from seawater. And this one is attracting investment from Saudi Arabia. Ma'aden is interested in that, but also from Asia. Singapore and China are also interested in this. So Saudi KAUST, we have a technology that attracts global interest. That's the point, and can be done. So this is my last slide. So the global competition, the lessons we learned is that investment in R&D, all countries think it will pay off. The devil's in the detail. How do you do it? An ever-widening gap between this chimerica, China and the US and the rest of the world. It can easily be a lose-lose war. The changing RDI landscape requires country-specific response. Different countries have different situations. And finally, institution of higher education has a key role to play in this. Thank you very much.